Affiliate links in description. Tifa Lockhart, up $19.65. Landfall decks are getting spicy new tools, and people are remembering how explosive doubling power can be with ramp strategies. Plus, Final Fantasy crossover cards always have that collector premium keeping prices sticky. The Ooze, up $4.83. The TMNT Secret Lair drop created sudden demand for this unique +1/+1 counter engine that works great in modular and counter-based strategies. It's also the only way to get graveyard hate that converts into more counters, making it unexpectedly versatile. Hexing Squelcher, up $3.03. Uncounterable threats are getting more respect in the current meta, and this little goblin shuts down control decks while protecting your entire board. The ward protection on everything else is just gravy that makes it super annoying to deal with. Terra, Magical Adept, Esperterra, up $2.99. Final Fantasy crossover hype is real, and players are grabbing the coolest looking commanders while supply is still tight. Transform commanders are always popular in EDH, and this one screams build around potential. Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier, Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, up $2.83. Final Fantasy nostalgia is real, and this iconic villain is drawing both collectors and commander players who want that anime transformation flavor. The card's actually pretty solid in practice, so it's not just hype driving the price up. Super Shredder, up $2.63. Super Shredder is seeing play as a sneaky value engine in sacrifice-heavy decks, since it grows off any permanent leaving, not just creatures. The TMNT nostalgia factor doesn't hurt either when people are building themed decks. Badger Mole Cub, up $2.49. Mana dorks that also ramp lands are getting attention as players realize this slots perfectly into green, creature-based combo decks. The Earthbend mechanic creates unexpected synergies with landfall and creature tap strategies that people are just starting to explore. Redirect Lightning, up $1.93. Redirect effects are getting more respect as the meta gets more combo heavy, and this one's flexible cost makes it way more playable than people initially thought. Plus, avatar cards have that collector appeal, driving some extra demand. Wan Shutong, Librarian, up $1.83. Wan Shutong is getting picked up as a solid value engine in blue commander decks. Plus, the avatar nostalgia factor is keeping demand steady. That triggered ability to punish opponents' tutoring is surprisingly relevant in the current meta. Michelangelo, Weirdness to 11, up $1.71. Counters matter decks are getting more popular, and this little turtle doubles up your +1/+1 counters while making its own fuel. The TMNT nostalgia factor doesn't hurt either when people are brewing around these fun legendary creatures. Ugin, Eye of the Storms. Ugin, Eye of the Storms, up $1.63. Ugin's getting some love as dragon tribal decks are seeing more play lately. Plus, any planeswalker that can potentially flip and ramp you is always going to have casual appeal. Cloud, Planet's Champion, up $1.51. Equipment Matters is getting some love lately, and Cloud's cost reduction ability makes him a perfect Voltron commander. Plus, nostalgia factor from Final Fantasy fans wanting their spiky-haired boy. Collective Inferno, up $1.25. Tribal decks are eating this up because doubling damage from your chosen creature type is absolutely bonkers in Commander. The Convoke makes it surprisingly easy to cast even in aggressive builds that want to dump creatures fast. Cloud, Midgar Mercenary, up $1.18. Equipment decks are getting spicy again, and Cloud is basically a tutor stapled to a double trigger engine. White players are finally waking up to how busted this card actually is in Voltron strategies. The Darkness Crystal, up $1.12. Black Devotion decks are picking up steam, and this thing makes your entire game plan cheaper while stealing your opponent's best creatures. It's basically a one-card engine that does everything Mono Black wants to do. Craterhoof Behemoth, up $1.04. Craterhoof is the ultimate go-wide finisher, and green creature decks are super popular right now. Once you have a decent board presence, this thing just ends games out of nowhere. Monument to Endurance, up 99 cents. Monument to Endurance is spiking because Discard Matters decks are getting serious love in the new set. Having 3 different modes that all trigger off something you're already doing makes this an absolute engine piece that Commander players can't ignore. Buster Sword, up 97 cents. Buster Sword is seeing steady climb as players realize how busted free casting spells can be in equipment-focused commander decks. The card advantage plus cheating mana cost is exactly what Voltron strategies needed to stay competitive. Ref and Mikey, Troublemakers, up 95 cents. People are finally realizing this thing is a budget powerhouse in creature-heavy commander decks. Cheating creatures into play while swinging for lethal is exactly what aggro players have been looking for. Bree of Clan Stoutarm, up 95 cents. The Boros Life Gain deck just got a new toy that turns every point of life into free spells. People are realizing this thing goes absolutely nuts with lifelink creatures and cheap life gain spells. Blood Crypt, up 95 cents. Blood Crypt from the Lorwyn Eclipsed promos is spiking because it's a premium alternate art version of one of the most played dual lands in Magic. These special promo printings are becoming collector favorites, especially when the regular versions are already format staples. Marilyn, Fey Ascendant, up 93 cents. Elf and Fairy tribal decks are getting spicy new support, and this lets you steal opponents' cards while going wide with creatures. The free cast ability is absolutely busted when you have a decent board state. Nibelheim Aflame, up 90 cents. Nibelheim Aflame is spiking because people are realizing how busted that flashback mode is. Wiping the board and refilling your hand is exactly what red decks need. The Final Fantasy hype plus legitimate playability in creature-heavy metas is driving demand. Fabled Passage, up 88 cents. Fabled Passage got a fancy new printing in the Avatar set, and people are scooping up copies since it's one of the best fetchable lands for budget mana bases. The new art probably doesn't hurt either. Collectors love those crossover treatments. Rosa, Resolute White Mage, up 87 cents. Rosa's seeing renewed interest as life gain strategies get more competitive support, and Final Fantasy cards have that collectible crossover appeal that keeps demand steady. Halia, Guided by Light, up 86 cents. Life gain decks are getting more competitive support lately, and this gives you both the engine and card draw payoff in one efficient package. The warp ability also makes it super flexible for timing your plays around other life gain triggers. The Ether Spark, up 86 cents. Equipment planeswalkers are still blowing people's minds, and this one's getting serious brewing attention. The ability to ramp into 10 mana while also being a protected value engine is making combo players salivate. Emet Selch, Unsundered, Hades, Sorcerer of Eld, up 83 cents. Final Fantasy collectors are driving up demand on this transform card, especially since it's one of the more playable legends from the crossover set. The hype around anything Final Fantasy related in MTG is keeping prices climbing across the board. Elspeth, Stormslayer, up 80 cents. Token doublers are always sleeper hits in Commander, and this one's finally getting noticed since it comes with solid protection and immediate board presence. The promo printing keeps supply tight while demand keeps climbing. Splinter's Technique, up 79 cents. People are finally realizing this is basically a 2-mana tutor if you can connect with any unblocked creature. The sneak cost makes it way more playable than it first appeared, especially in aggressive black decks. Temple Garden, up 77 cents. Temple Garden's seeing steady demand as green-white decks remain super popular in Commander, and shocklands like this rarely stay cheap. Players are probably stocking up before any potential price spikes from upcoming set releases. Kefka, Court Mage / Kefka, Ruler of Ruin, up 76 cents. Kefka's seeing some love as players are still discovering the Final Fantasy's cards and realizing this transformed commander has some serious potential. The unique design and being from a beloved video game franchise is keeping demand steady, even weeks after release. Sarah Farron, Crystallized Sarah, up 75 cents. Final Fantasy nostalgia is real, and collectors are snatching up anything from this crossover set. Transform cards from universes beyond always seem to hold their value better than expected. Aang, Swift Savior, Argel Wit, Aang and Le, Ocean's Fury, up 73 cents. Aang's getting some love as players are brewing around the new Avatar commanders and realizing this double-sided powerhouse has serious versatility. The unique transform mechanic and multiple keyword abilities make it a solid pickup for casual Avatar-themed decks that are popping up everywhere. Summon, Bahamut, up 71 cents. Big mana strategies are getting more popular in Commander, and this thing is an absolute house that clears boards, then burns people out. The saga typing also gives it some unique synergy potential that players are starting to explore. Sozin's Comet, up 69 cents. Firebending decks are starting to pop up in casual metas, and this gives you explosive burst turns. The foretell cost makes it way more playable than people initially thought. Formidable Speaker, up 68 cents. Green creature tutors are always solid in casual formats, and that untap ability is surprisingly versatile for combo players. Probably just organic demand catching up since this effect is pretty rare at this mana cost. Riverpire Verge, up 67 cents. Riverpire Verge is seeing some uptick because people are realizing it's actually a solid budget dual land option for red-blue decks. The condition isn't too hard to meet and it enters untapped, which makes it way more playable than it initially looked. Gwen Stacy, Ghost Spider, up 66 cents. Transform cards are getting a lot of buzz lately with players exploring new flip strategies. Plus, anything Spider-Man related tends to hold value just from the collector appeal. Fated Firepower, up 64 cents. Damage doublers are always popular in Commander, and this one's getting picked up as people realize it scales with how much mana you pump into it. The flash makes it a nasty surprise when opponents think they're safe from your burn spells. Extinguisher Battleship, up 64 cents. Spacecraft Tribal is starting to gain traction, and this gives you both a board wipe and a huge flying threat in one package. The station mechanic makes it way more playable than it looks at first glance. Bitterbloom Bearer, up 63 cents. Fairy Tribal is quietly gaining steam, and this flash threat gives you immediate board presence while building an army every turn. The combination of evasive bodies and instant speed deployment is exactly what tribal aggro decks want right now. Mikey and Leo, Chaos and Order, up 63 cents. Counter synergy decks are popping off lately, and this gives you consistent card draw in those strategies. The low mana cost makes it super accessible for budget builds that want that effect. Forest, up 61 cents. This is likely people buying into the new Tarkir set hype since we're getting Dragonstorm soon. Basic lands from older sets always see random spikes when their plane gets revisited due to nostalgia and collector demand. Geneva, Ancient Calamity, up 61 cents. Genova's getting picked up by sacrifice deck builders who realize the card draw engine is nuts with cheap mutants. The Final Fantasy nostalgia factor doesn't hurt either when the gameplay actually delivers. Moonshadow, up 61 cents. Sacrifice and mill strategies are getting more popular, and people are realizing how quickly this thing can grow from a one-wust menace threat into a real beater. It's basically a cheap engine that rewards you for doing what black decks already want to do. Donatello, Gadget Master, up 60 cents. Artifact token strategies are getting more popular in Commander, and Donatello's ability to copy any artifact you control is pretty unique. The sneak mechanic also makes him surprisingly easy to get through for damage. Secret Tunnel, up 59 cents. Secret Tunnel's getting bought up by tribal deck builders who realize giving 2 creatures unblockable for 4 mana is actually pretty solid. The Avatar set hype is definitely helping push demand on the more playable cards too. The Walls of Bossing Sea, up 56 cents. Indestructible tribal decks are picking up steam, and giving your entire board protection for 8 mana is exactly what those strategies want. Plus, the Avatar IP is still drawing in collectors who missed it the first time around. Golbez, Crystal Collector, up 53 cents. Artifact decks are getting some love lately, and this gives you card advantage plus a nasty life drain payoff. The Surveil trigger on every artifact makes it surprisingly smooth to set up your graveyard engine. Draco Genesis, up 53 cents. People are probably brewing around the new dragon support from recent sets, and free casting engines like this always spike when their tribe gets fresh toys. The Masamune, up 53 cents. Death trigger synergies are really hot right now with all the aristocrats and sacrifice decks people are brewing. The double trigger effect is exactly what those strategies want to push their combos over the top. Rise of the Dark Realms, up 52 cents. Rise of the Dark Realms is probably getting picked up because of renewed interest in mass reanimation strategies. The Final Fantasy printing gives casual players a fresh reason to build around this classic game-ending bomb. Aether and Prywin, up 52 cents. Life Total Matters decks are getting more popular in Commander, and this equipment turns any creature into a massive threat. The unique scaling effect has people realizing it's way more powerful than they initially thought. Boomy Unleashed, up 52 cents. Boomy's getting love from Land Matters players who realize he's basically a mini Craterhoof that gives you a second combat with your animated lands. The avatar hype is finally translating into actual deck building instead of just collector interest. Dawnsire, Sunstar Dreadnought, up 49 cents. Spacecraft Tribal is starting to pick up steam as more players discover how easily this thing hits that sweet 10 counter threshold for massive damage. The combo potential with cheap creatures is turning heads in casual commander pods. Steam Vents, up 49 cents. Steam Vents caught a small bump because Izzet decks are seeing more play in multiple formats right now. Shock lands never stay down for long since they're essential for any competitive mana base. Bloodline Bidding, up 48 cents. Tribal decks are getting more love lately, and this Convoke Reanimator spell is perfect for creature-heavy strategies that can cast it for cheap. The synergy between filling your graveyard with creatures and then tapping survivors to bring everyone back is too good to ignore. Check TCGPlayer for current prices, link in description.